What up, people? Pushing While Black here, and this is the NBA playoff preview. And I took a little hiatus from basketball. I watched it, but I didn't really vlog about it. I watched it, I paid attention to it, but I wasn't blogging about it because I was doing other stuff. And now I'm back. Got to get ready for the playoffs. Did the graphics last night, so this video will be up by tomorrow morning, so you guys can get my predictions for the playoffs, and for the first round of the playoffs, and we'll go from there. So let's get started. The first, and I'm gonna go in a specific order with Boston and Chicago being last because I have a little bit more to say about the whole Boston-Chicago thing. So we'll go from there. But pretty much I'm gonna go in order from 1 through 8, and work my way up until the 1 through 8 in the East, and Chicago and Boston will be last. Portland and Golden State. Golden State is going to win this in 5 games. If everybody's healthy and everybody seems to playing together. There was talk of, well, actually there wasn't talk. They actually played better without Kevin Durant when he was hurt. It almost seemed like Golden State was back to normal because they weren't trying to fit him in the offense. So I watched Golden State, especially early in the season. When Anthony was doing this with me, he watched a lot of that. So I'm still keeping up with them. With the injury to Kevin Durant, it looked like they were back to last year's form, even the year before last year's form or the year before year's form. Now Kevin Durant is healthy. There's a groove. The guard play for Portland is going to be really important. And that's going to be their key to win. But Golden State has too much firepower. I don't like predicting sweeps just because you never know what a home court advantage game could turn into. You never know if somebody has a crazy 50-point game. So I don't like picking sweeps here. There's only one sweep that I can honestly see happening in the first round. We'll get to that in a second. But I think Golden State got too much firepower, and they will easily win the series 4-1. Memphis and San Antonio, that's going to be because San Antonio kind of runs a little bit now, and they're not really applauding, back to the basket team anymore. They're kind of running a little bit. Memphis runs a little bit too, but they kind of still have that grinding team with Zebo and Gasol. San Antonio is a better team. I think San Antonio will end up winning this series in 5. Here's where it's going to get fun. OKC and Houston. Now, Russell Westbrook is probably going to win MVP. Harden's going to be second. Okay. Russell Westbrook got the record he averaged triple-double. He got the record for the most triple-doubles in a season. He's putting up an amazing season. Will probably win MVP because MVP fatigue is real. And as much as Colin Cowherd and other people decry that, it should be LeBron, it's not going to be LeBron. It is going to be either Harden or it is going to be Russell. More than likely, it's going to be Russell. It just hasn't. I don't think it's been official yet. So here's how that's going to break down. Russell Westbrook is amazing, and he will lead that team, and it will be very, very fun. The thing with OKC is there anybody else outside of Russell Westbrook that's going to do anything in a 7-game series, because adjustments are real and they will happen. So you will key on to him and you will figure out how to stop him. So I think the first game of the series, all the marks of an upset. Matter of fact, The first game of the series, I can totally see OKC winning that game, and then adjustments will happen, and you can key in on him. Now, this is where you can kind of call an upset here as a series. Mike D'Antoni has not really thought about defense. It's an afterthought. It's still an afterthought. The same issues that he's had in Phoenix, the same issues that he's had in Los Angeles, same issues that he had in New York when he was in with the Knicks. They don't guard. And when you don't guard and you try to outshoot everybody, there will be games, especially with a guy like Russell Westbrook, there will be games where you're going to get outshot by somebody doing amazing stuff. So with my head, I'm going to pick Houston, but there could be an opportunity for an upset here just because Houston doesn't guard anybody. With Utah and the Clippers. Utah is young. I haven't really watched Utah play. Utah's very young. The Clippers are the Clippers, meaning the Clippers are a veteran team. You have a veteran coach. It doesn't matter because they're not good enough. And I've been a critic of the Clippers for this entire season. The Clippers are a team just full of dudes, just full of guys. And they're not necessarily good. They're not necessarily bad. They're just a group of dudes. And Doc Rivers is a good coach, but again, it doesn't matter because you got a bunch of just NBA players. No one's really awesome. No one's really bad. And they will figure out a way not to win a series. It might not be Utah because Utah is very, very young. But it's gonna be the second round. Like they're probably gonna beat the Jazz. I haven't really watched the Jazz play that much, so I don't know how good they are. I can only go by the Clippers' age and experience versus the Jazz, just because they're used to being there, and they against a young team. I think in 7 games they'll figure out how to win. But whoever they draw in the first round, Golden State, more than likely, they're going to get punched in the mouth anyway. So, the fourth, that's the West. So we got Golden State in 5, San Antonio in 6, Houston, this is probably going to go 7 games. I can totally see OKC winning this, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the higher seed just because that's more than likely to happen. But I would not be surprised. I'm not gonna do an upset pick here because I can really only see 1, maybe 2 upsets in this playoffs. But this is like don't bet this, but I could see OKC shocking the world and coming out of the playoffs just because they don't guard anybody in Houston. And with the Clippers and Utah, it'll probably be the Clippers just because of experience. This going to the East now is kind of a toss-up because this is going to go down to guard play, really. I mean, can Atlanta stop John Wall and Bradley Beal? That's basically it. That's basically the question of this series. Can Atlanta stop the guard play? And of the big man, of Dwight Howard and Martin Gortat, who of those two is going to put up a dominant performance? So I honestly think Washington's a better team. I think Scott Brooks figured it out. And Bradley Beal and John Wall are clicking. So I think Washington's going to end up winning that series, maybe 6 games. And I think they're going to be a problem for whoever comes out of that Chicago-Boston series. We'll get to that in a second. Another fun series in the East for me is the Raptors and the Bucks. I love the Bucks. I love how long they are. I love they can defend. If they just got a consistent score, I'm not sure if Jabari Parker's back for the playoffs or he's still out. But with DeRozan and I can't think of the other Lowry with DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. They're a good tandem. They've been there before. But Toronto is kind of like the Clippers of the East. And I like Toronto more than I do the Clippers. I just don't trust the Clippers as a basketball team at all. Toronto is a little better, but they will figure out a way not to win a series. And you think this is their year, and then they'll get to the conference finals and they'll lose. So, but I think Milwaukee's going to give Toronto problems. Toronto might win the series, but Milwaukee's going to give them problems. And I could see, just like I can see in OKC here, I can see Milwaukee shocking the basketball world. Again, I'm not going to pick them just because it's safer. I'm going to pick Toronto here. But I can totally see Milwaukee putting 7 there, putting 7 games in. And you know what I'm saying? Putting in work and making Toronto tired for that Cleveland-Indiana game. That Cleveland-Indiana winner. Which, good segue, going to that matchup. Do we really need to talk about this? It's going to be Cleveland. Even if Cleveland is still on a slide, Indiana, I don't even know how they got in the playoffs, and they're hitting a wall. They're hitting the wall at the wrong time. So I honestly think if everybody's healthy and everybody plays well on Cleveland, I don't think Lance Stevenson is going to do anything with LeBron James. I don't think that'll be an upset. I think it'll go 5 games. If Indiana's lucky, it could go 6. But that's something that I don't see, and I think Cleveland is going to end up winning that series. That is the only sweep I see in that series. Now, this is why I wanted to go last, because I have a couple of thoughts about the Bulls based off of what I heard today on First Take. First of all, I wanted to deal with the Bulls last because I don't know how I feel about the Bulls making the playoffs, because I don't think it's going to matter now, because when I saw this roster come together, I had mixed feelings. I had mixed reaction, because when I saw it come in writing, the rumor being, Dwayne Wade's coming. And when I think he agreed to sign here, I remember putting on my Facebook page, this isn't going to get you to beat Cleveland. I don't think in a 7-game series, Wade, Butler, and Rondo, and a bag of bums that the rest of the Bulls are, other than Nico in spots and Portis when you just tell him to run and jump and be athletic, I don't think those guys will get you past Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? If you even get to Cleveland, just because of how the bracket's set up now. So I was kind of like, all right, they're going to do something, but they're not going to beat Cleveland. But when I started vlogging about in the NBA, again, when you look on paper and when you look at how kind of question mark, I'm not going to say bad, but when you look at how question mark filled the East is, I thought on paper they should be in the conference finals. And the way the bracket's set up, they still can be. And I'm going to go into that in a second. The season, Fred Hoiberg's the bad basketball coach. He's not good. And he's not, it's not because he doesn't know how to coach. It's not because the offense, he doesn't run a good offense. It's because he doesn't have the ear of his players. He doesn't have the ear of the management. He cannot take control of a locker room at all. He's mealy mouth. And because when they run the stuff that he wants to run, they look like a different basketball team, but they are inconsistent with not only the play but the style of play. And they don't guard well. They don't guard well. They don't really do anything well. Jimmy is still awkward scoring. He's getting better, but it's still awkward. Sometimes he can put up crazy numbers and they lose. So I don't know. So when they were 10th or 11th and they were getting blown out by the Mavericks and all this crazy stuff, I was like, okay, maybe if they don't make the playoffs, maybe we can get some draft picks. These fools made the playoffs. So now we're not going to, and this is a deep draft. Now we're not going to get a decent draft pick because they're going to mess around and they're going to mess around and make the playoffs. Now they made the playoffs. Now they're going, and this isn't like you made the playoffs and you drew Cleveland, where it's basically going to be D Wade trying to score 40 against LeBron, and LeBron just, quietly just does his LeBronness, and they win and they win in 4 games or 5, right? They drew Boston, and basically Boston, Isaiah Thomas is having a crazy season, but he's 5'8", and you can stop Isaiah Thomas in a 7-game series. And they really don't have a second guy, which is why they tried to get Jimmy Butler there. Okay, so you could have used Jimmy Butler. The Bulls didn't want to part with him, and you don't really have a second playmaker. The Bulls, on paper, have 3. And the idea that First Take had this morning was, can Chicago upset Boston in 7 games? The consensus is maybe. I also say maybe. But there's a lot of caveats here. How healthy is D Wade? How efficient can Butler be in 7 games? How does Rondo fit in the mix? Can he be a starter? Is he better coming off the bench still? Can you stop Isaiah Thomas defensively? Because not saying can you physically do it. Do you have a defender that can do it? Because you do. Jimmy Butler is that defender. But do you guard? Because they have a tendency not to guard people. They have a tendency to take games off defensively. What type of offense are you going to run? Because is this going to be iso ball between Wade and Butler? This series is going to go 5 games, and Boston is going to punch the Bulls in the mouth and on to Atlanta and Washington winner. But if the Bulls actually run the stuff that Fred runs, and they're consistent shooting, I'm not going to say that the Bulls are going to upset, but it's not that much of a crazy thing if a lot of things go right and if they do certain things. So, I don't know. I'm still going to pick Boston here, but I can totally see the Bulls just be totally Bulls and do some crazy stuff, and Butler has a 40-point game, and D Wade has a 35-point game in the series, and they end up taking the series to 7 games. But, it can also see them completely pissing the bed away. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to pick Boston, but I'm going to pick Boston in 7 games. And there's going to be some crazy upsets in this series. So that's what I think, man. That's what I think about how the it's gonna go. So my biggest threats for upset is both 3-6 series. I think Golden State's gonna win in 5. So is San Antonio. They're gonna win in 5. OKC, Houston's gonna win in 7, but I can see OKC pulling up an upset. Clippers are gonna win in 6 in 6 just because of experience. Washington's gonna win against Atlanta in 6 because of guard play. Toronto's gonna win in 7 probably, but again, just because the length of the Bucks, I can see Toronto pulling. I can see Toronto not winning. Cleveland, that'll probably be the only sweep I see in the series, and Chicago and Boston. There's a lot of ifs here because they're so different game by game. But if they can pull up a steady stretch of we're going to run you out the gym, we're going to be old dudes, but we're going to run you out the gym, they could do something. So I think Boston's going to end up winning the series, but I can see Chicago putting in a good 6 games, at least making Boston tired for whoever's going to win that Atlanta-Washington thing. Okay, so here's a thought real quick, and then I'm going to close. If Chicago beats Boston, big if, pull the crazy upset of the series, of the first round, and they win. Depending on who they draw in the second round, if it's Atlanta, Chicago's going to the conference finals. If it's Washington, then it's still going to be a hard-fought series, but I don't see Chicago winning that one. But, yeah, if it's Atlanta, the path to the conference finals is still there because you don't see Toronto and you don't see Toronto, Milwaukee, or Cleveland. Okay? So, of the second part of that bracket, Atlanta doesn't scare me. Washington does just because they're guard play, but Atlanta doesn't scare me. So if Chicago beats Boston, again, big if, because Boston is a better team, talent-wise. It's just some of the pieces don't really mesh well. But Brad Stevens is a better tactician than Hoiberg is. I just don't think Hoiberg's a good coach. Not because of his system, just because of how he is. But if they figure something out and win, if it's Atlanta, I can see the Chicago beating Atlanta. But anyway, that's basically it, man. I know that last part, some people are like, you're a crazy person. But, hey, stranger things have happened. And with Boston only having Isaiah Thomas as a consistent guy, you can kind of stop him. And if that's the case, then the series is up for grabs. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this. This will be up by tomorrow morning. Push a wild blackout. Later, people.